Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Okay, so welcome to the Wales Tech Week, and I'm Chris Hancock, CTO of Creo Medical, and we're going to basically talk to you with my colleagues Richard Lawrence and George Hodgkins about how we responded to the pandemic, and basically briefly talk through the Creo team, how we responded to the pandemic in terms of taking steps forward to carry on with the development of the business, with obviously the aim as the company is to treat patients and to move the development of our products forward during the pandemic by using creative and inventive means of doing so. I'll basically talk about the business side of how we did that, and then my colleague George will talk about work we did in the community to support the pandemic. George will also talk about one of the technologies that we developed, non-thermal plasma system for sterilizing endoscopes, which was a big issue due to cross-contamination caused by the COVID virus. Basically, at the beginning of the pandemic, going back to January, February, as a company, we had 6 products. Our first product, Speedboat Inject, was using to treat patients. I think at that time we treated around 400 patients, all entirely successful for early stage bowel cancer. Our other products, we'd actually got regulatory clearance at the beginning of the year. So our object was to build, manufacture these other products and get human use. So the question arose when our CEO, Craig Gulliford, had to make the decision to close the company down. In fact, we closed the company down 2 weeks before the government, so is to do everything we could to keep the staff safe. We had to work out other ways of working. So we looked at our manufacturing plant. Our lead on the instrument development, Dr. Shaun Preston, looked at his team, how we could keep things going, how we could get the clinical protocols written, how we could still manufacture, sterilize, and package our devices ready for treating the patients. And obviously, that meant sort of reorganizing the company, and our manufacturing and operations team, headed up by Chris Edwards in Rowan, Monaco, did an amazing job to start thinking in a different way. And due to elective surgery basically being stopped in the UK, we had to look at other clever means of treating the patients and keeping things going. So the 5 new products, we were looking at the different ways, looking at overseas use of the products where the pandemic wasn't hadn't sort of taken such a harsh effect as it did in the UK. So one example that we're particularly proud of is the first use of our Microblade Fine product. It's basically a 19.5 gauge needle, less than 1 millimeter in diameter, for treating pancreatic tumors. And Ian Gayton said, even though elective surgery wasn't taking place in the UK, we managed to, or the team team effort, we managed to treat the first patients. And the first patient treated, she had a 6-centimeter pancreatic lesion. It was treated in December 2020. The team actually had to fly out to Ecuador with all the preparation needed for this. And it was our new commercial team that enabled us to be able to set up these patient treatments with one of the leading pancreabiliary clinicians in the world in Ecuador. So we treated this, particularly this patient I wanted to talk about. This patient had a 6-centimeter tumor in his pancreas. We not only treated it, but the 2 months follow-up indicated that there was no scar tissue and the tumor was totally shrunk. And basically, this person was with us over Christmas. This enabled him to have Christmas with his family, and not only that, he's still with us now. So this is just the beginning of the treatments with this particular device. But this just highlights how resourceful I think the company was during the pandemic. Another example I'd like to show you was the development of development of what we call miniature energy sources, which was another huge achievement from our engineering team. They basically set up the labs, RF development labs, which I don't know if many of you on this session will be engineers, have a technology background. But to basically design RF circuits, you need an oscilloscope, a soldering iron, signal generators, basic kit. The company enabled the engineers to set up these systems in their homes. And George will talk more about his personal experience here. But we had engineers working in their previous schools that were actually, the kids had been sent home, and this is all the resourcefulness of the company to really, live by anything is possible with the right approach. Here, these energy capsules were developed and taken to the next level. These could be used not only in portable energy delivery devices, but potentially treat patients in third world countries, but also applications in robotics, where the energy is put into the robots. And what's a robot without having energy, without being able to perform therapy? So again, this is a real good example of how the company Creo responded during the pandemic. Finally, I wanted to just show you this slide, which basically indicates some of the training sessions that took place all over the world. A lot of these training sessions took place in the US under the guidance of our Chief Commercial Officer, David Woods. And again, a lot of the clinicians who were basically unable to treat their patients, they could turn up to training sessions in all over the US, in Phoenix, Arizona, in New York, and indeed other parts of Europe, to start getting prepared for the use of our technology as soon as the pandemic ended. So we ended up training more clinicians than were ever trained, which are now using the devices. And I think one of the many sad aspects of the coronavirus pandemic was that a lot of patients who would be treated, obviously they couldn't get their sort of regular examinations. They couldn't be treated. Those with tumors, the tumors grown a lot larger than would otherwise be. So now there is a huge drive towards there's a huge drive towards treating these patients and getting them treated as soon as possible with the technology. I think the final point for me is, we now have our Speedboat Inject, which is now, I think, treated over 600 cases for colon cancer. We have our Microblade Fine, which has showed you an example of it being used to treat pancreatic cancer. It can also is used in the kidney and one of the left lobe of the liver. We've got Microblade Flex, which was developed the clinical protocols during the pandemic to enable clinicians to start the clinical study, which actually got put on hold in Europe because of the pandemic, and that's all starting now. So I think that we all talk about KPIs and key performance indicators, and I think one for the company is to really to really push forward hard on the treatment of our new devices, which we're very proud of, and basically how many lives can we save? Can we get to a point where we've saved as many lives as have been taken through the pandemic? And the way in which we'll do that is the great team, the great commercial team, engineering team, and all the teams that support, and the real can-do attitude of the company. So I'll just hand over to my colleague, George, now. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's George. I'm an engineer. I've been with Creo Medical for 3.5 years now, and I'd like to talk to you about some of the community efforts that we did. So, alongside the the core business and keeping that going throughout the pandemic, we also looked at ways of helping the community. I remember at the start of the pandemic, our CEO, Craig, he gathered us around the boardroom for a meeting where he highlighted how bad things were probably going to get. And he was really proactive and made the decision for the company to close a few weeks before the government guidelines came in and before other companies started to do the same. So this did come as a bit of a shock to everybody, as you can imagine. And obviously we were all there at the time. We can remember how much of a shock it was. So a lot of our employees and our colleagues found ourselves suddenly, the office was closed. We had to vacate. What do we do? So a lot of people went home, and then started to think about what they could do next. For some people, working from home and doing the engineering from home wasn't really an option. So Chris, Craig, and Rich said our leaders at Creo said, it doesn't matter if you can't do company work. If you can help the community in any way, then please do. So I'd just like to go through some of the things we did. So I think one thing that became apparent at the early stage of the pandemic was the lack of PPE available. So frontline NHS staff were struggling enough, but also local communities and GP surgeries, care homes, and other key workers needed PPE, and it wasn't available. So we had some really resourceful colleagues at Creo who said, well, why don't we make some then? And so, due to the advancements in 3D printing in the last few years, we've got quite a few 3D printers at Creo. We use them for prototyping medical devices, handles, and some of the devices that Chris just showed you on his slides. We often 3D print the handles when we prototype them to begin with. So we've got lots of these printers available. So a few of our colleagues decided, well, we can make visors if we combine the 3D printing technology with laser cutting and laser machining. We can actually cut out plastic and then make the clips that go on the face shields and make visors. And this turned out to be a really, really successful community project from Creo, because a bunch of our colleagues got involved, and it was a real team effort. The design spread globally. We know I'm sure people here have used 3D printers and G-code and know how easy it is to share designs, and that team spirit really came together. So we ended up making over 1,000 visors across local communities in North and South Wales, and we were lucky that local communities came together to provide space and support, and it was a really good team effort. And afterwards, a lot of the printers were donated to the schools to encourage STEM learning, and we're all really aware of how important it is to teach school children engineering and maths and science, technology. It's so important. So this really helped. So that was a really positive thing that came out of the fact that colleague couldn't do any work at home. So here's some pictures of our colleagues and some of the people that they've helped and helped us to do this. And there's Donny's coffee shop. There you go, with some 3D printers there. So it was really nice way to sort of do something in the pandemic. Another thing we did was we sent some ventilators to India. So these were originally sourced from China and brought to the UK, and then several of our employees assembled them and inspected them, because things like putting batteries in needed to be done and just check that they were working, and we did that here. But they initially came from China. But once the decline in the cases of COVID over here it wasn't so bad, we decided that, well, can we give them to people that need them the most? And at the time, India was suffering quite a lot with rising cases. So we, again, as a big team effort, we managed to involve a local courier, Duffy Transport from Chepstow. He took the units to Heathrow, and then we got a chartered plane that then took them to Mumbai. And so this was a really good partnership, and it was in partnership with the sleep charity Hope to Sleep and the British Association of Physicians of Indian origin. So it was a really good, really nice thing to do as well. And that was a great team effort. So 122 ventilators, 95 oxygen concentrators, and some other accessories as well. And here's some of the at the time, how it was quite apparent how grateful they were for this, and so it was a really good community team effort. And then one last thing I'd like to talk about is bikes for NHS staff, which is with the pandemic, PPE and ventilators are quite obvious answers to the crisis, but you wouldn't really think of bikes. But one of the knock-on effects of the reduced public transport was that the key workers were struggling to get to work. So in some cases, the journey times were taking over an hour, and then they'd have to go and do a full day's work of being in the NHS, which is bad enough as it is usually, let alone with this pandemic. So this was just a nice thing. We donated about 100 bikes to work with BW Cycling to achieve this, and so I think that they managed to get to work in short times, and there was a nice community feeling about that. So that's about it from me on the community side of things. I'd just like to finish on the fact that it proves that how we can come together when it's needed. This was like a wartime effort, really, and we've made a difference in lots of areas, and creative relationships that we're definitely going to sustain going forward. And so I think we never knew that we'd end up doing these sorts of things, but it just shows what can happen with the right approach. So thank you very much. I'd like to pass you over to Richard now, if that's okay.
Great, thanks, George. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Richard Lawrence from Creo Medical, and I'm responsible for the sales and service of our products and services for the organisation. And just to touch on some key focus areas during the pandemic, and when it all started, one of the key messages that came from the organisation to all of the staff was to focus on what we can do and not what we can't. And from a commercial perspective, we decided to really use the pandemic as an opportunity to gear ourselves up commercially during that time. So as the world came out of it, we could continue the drive for more patients to be treated with our technologies. So just before we went into the pandemic, we'd already had a suite of devices ready to start treating patients. And the first thing we did was to really focus on our commercial strategy for marketing the devices. So again, as the world came out of it, we could really start our commercial drive globally. We also used the pandemic to look for additional talent that we could add to the organization. And there were two activities that happened that really helped us acquire additional talent to Creo. The first was that we were able to complete two acquisitions of two different companies during last year. The first was an organization called Albin Medical. This is a European organization with a complementary range of products that really fitted with Creo's core technologies. And also it allowed us to have a footprint in 4 of the main European countries with a direct sales channel into Europe. That happened in July, and then shortly after that, in November, we also completed a second acquisition of an organization called Bocart Medical. Again, very complementary range of products. This organization has a large presence in Belgium. So by completing that acquisition, it also gave us a footprint and resources in an additional European country. The organization also appointed a chief commercial officer, David Woods, and David has been really key in leading the commercial organization and then bringing on additional talent in the USA, Europe, and Asia Pacific. What this has essentially meant during the pandemic is, as we went into it, Creo had a headcount of about 90 people, and we doubled that to nearly 220 people during the course of the pandemic. There was in particular a 10-fold increase in our commercial, marketing, and our distribution resources. And this really helped us to achieve our financial goals during 2020. So where we are now, Creo is now a global organization, particularly in USA, Asia Pacific, and Europe. But we're very proud to be a Welsh organization with our roots firmly established here in Wales. And this gives an idea of what we managed to achieve during the pandemic. We now employ, as I say, nearly 220 people. We have a presence with a direct sales forces in 8 countries. And we also have a presence in 17 additional countries where we're distributing our devices through distributors. One of the other successes that we had, one of our products is a device called Speedboat, and I'll talk very briefly about the device shortly. But we were also able to establish a procedure rather than a device name. So Speedboat is the name of the device. And during the last year, we were also to establish a new procedure called Speedboat submucosal dissection, or SSD. And this really allowed us to bring to life the device and the technology and how it can really transform a patient's journey out of the disease. So essentially, this is an endoscopic device that you can see here that passes through a flexible endoscope. And what this allows clinicians to do is to treat lesions in a day case or endoscopy setting, and actually prevents them from going on to having more radical intervention, as an example, surgery. And this device is primarily used for treating colonic lesions, and being able to remove those lesions totally from the colon before they start developing into something far more sinister, and actually changing the patient pathway in a day case setting rather than a surgery setting. So I can show you here that the first novel feature of this is, you can see the amber arrows. This is showing by RF bipolar energy flowing through the instrument, which really allows the clinicians to cut precisely during the procedure. We're also able to pass microwave energy through the device as well. And this really gives the clinicians a safe and precise on-demand coagulation whilst they're doing the procedure. And we also have inbuilt safety elements of it as well. So the bottom of the device is completely insulated to make the procedure very safe. And we've also have an integrated injection needle. So through this one device, a physician can actually treat a patient with just this one device, and there's no need to swap and change devices. So it makes it very efficient and very safe for the patient. So before the pandemic, we've had a lot of success with Speedboat and introducing this into hospitals. But the other thing we wanted to do is, as well as having some fantastic technology, and we really knew how this could change patient outcomes, we wanted to try and prove this with data. So one of the projects that we launched last year was a health economic project, where we really analysed how are patients treated currently in the hospitals, and looking at the cost to the healthcare system for the patient's life. So as an example, the NHS records all of the costs associated with procedures and interventions. We also know the reported complications that can happen from many procedures. So we actually mapped that out for a patient's journey and compared the standard approach at the moment to that of using Speedboat or SSD as the procedure. And what the starting point here was to really understand how many patients in the UK actually have unfortunately developed the polyps of the colon. So what you can see here at the start is, this is NHS data where 150,000 patients every year are presented with polyps in the colon. We use that then to extrapolate it out for all of the regions of the UK. So from a UK point of view, there's nearly 180,000 patients every year that present with these polyps of the colon. And what we really wanted to do was to understand the value that we could provide with our device to the healthcare system, as well as all of the benefits that the patients have from an improved clinical outcome. And what we established after doing this project is, when you compare SSD with the more conventional approach of surgery, that for every patient treated, there would be a £10,000 saving to the healthcare system. And what's really amazing is when you extrapolate that £10,000 per patient saving to the healthcare system, if every patient that presented with the polyp of the colon had SSD, as an example, we're talking a significant amount of financial savings that can be released to the NHS to allow them to reinvest that back into frontline services. And even if we look at a more conservative approach. So even if we look at a subset of patients that are treated in other ways, we're still able to release huge savings to the NHS with our devices. And this was really exciting for us because whilst our physicians and doctors in hospitals were really seeing the benefit to the patient outcome from our devices, this is fantastic data that we can present to hospitals to show the savings that they can make, primarily by treating these patients in a day case endoscopy setting rather than sending them off to an operating theatre for a surgical approach. And the final topic just to touch on here, and Chris mentioned this a little bit earlier, but in December, we did the first human use of a new product called Microblade Fine. This is a unique device that allows microwave ablation to be, or the device is passed through a flexible endoscope, and this can be used to ablate soft tissue. And an example of this is patients with pancreatic cancer. And in December, we were able to complete the first human use case of Microblade Fine in a patient who had pancreatic cancer that was unresectable. And now we're delighted to say that following the procedure, the patient remains well, is enjoying life, and equally important to us, you can see at the end of the slide there that as well as making a difference to the patient's clinical outcome, that the doctor is really enjoying using the device and is going to be implementing it into his practice moving forward. Thank you very much. And back over to George.
I would just like to say, thanks, Rich, and it just shows what we can really achieve when we put our minds to it and when we need to. So the whole the existing products that we've got at Creo that are now being used is absolutely amazing, and the community effort as well is really good. But I'd like to talk to you now about the future, which is something I'm working on as in part of the R&D department. We're looking at plasma that Chris mentioned earlier. So I'll show you that now. So one of our new inventions is an argon plasma generator, which basically is an RF and microwave energy source. So it utilizes our existing technology. This is an argon plasma generator that utilizes RF and microwave energy combined with argon gas for surface sterilization. It consists of a microwave energy source. It's a 2.45 gigahertz microwave energy source combined with 100 kilohertz RF energy source, and the augmented electric field ionizes the argon gas to produce the plasma. So this is the generator. You can see here we've got our little argon cylinder generator and our applicator here. And the idea is that when the plasma is applied to the surface, it actually has the ability to deactivate different bacteria and viruses, and just by hovering over the wand, if you want to call it a wand, you can hover it over the plasma, over the surface, and that will sterilize the area. So due to the pandemic, this technology, we really started pushing it forward because we thought, oh, well, we've been thinking of it for a while, but now is the time to really push this. And with the need to sterilize things, everybody's using disposable means of sterilizing, but this is a reusable way of sterilizing. Okay, the gas is disposable, but the generator can be placed in lots of different situations where you want to sterilize surfaces. And there's two different applications we're currently looking at here. One is just surface sterilisation, like I mentioned here, and the other is actually endoscopic sterilisation. So there's actually a big problem in with procedures, especially during the crisis, that with cross contamination due to feces with patients, and so COVID was being spread by cross contamination of these scopes. So there's been a big effort to try and to sterilize them and to look at best ways of cleaning and to really solve that problem, which was unheard of before, really. And so this technology has the potential to do that. We have an applicator here that is designed to do that, and this is essentially it's a coaxial cable structure where the argon is fed around the structure to and then the microwave and RF energy goes down the coax, and so when they're combined at the end in this structure, this lovely blue plasma is formed, and the idea is that you would feed this applicator through the endoscope to sterilize it. So the plasma will be active as it's fed down. It'll be fed down via an automated means. So a motor actuator, for example, will push this through the scope, and then it might go back the other way, and that plasma will deactivate the any residual bacteria and virus that is in that applicator. Just for those that are not aware of what the duodenoscope looks like, here's one we've got, and we took it apart, and it's basically it's an instrument that's inserted into the person, and then our devices, such as the ones that Richard and Chris mentioned earlier, they are inserted into this scope, and this scope has maneuverability, and it allows the user to control it, to move around the body in the way, in a really clever way, to navigate to get to where a tumor may be, for example. And so they're used routinely throughout the world, but there is an issue of cross contamination. So our plasma technology is looking at sterilizing that. And this is an example of an applicator that we're working on that can do this. So hopefully this video will work. So hopefully you can see that working, but that essentially is the plume of plasma at the end of the device, and then that device is fed through the working channels of the scope, and then also through any other channels that are affected. I'm just a bit cautious of time at the moment, but I'd like to just share some initial results that we got with this technology, and so the FDA stipulates bacteria that you need to test this on for this to sort of become a viable device, and so these are 4 different strains of bacteria, and you can see that this plasma technology has the capability of reducing the bacteria to undetectable levels. So here we've got a log 6 kill Pseudomonas, and so the others are around that, some log 4 kills, and they're that's a very good kill rate and very good efficacy for this device. So this technology is looking really promising for the future. If anyone's got any questions on it, please let me know. Yeah, hopefully we can do some really good things with this. So thank you very much. Right, I think just to sum up, I think we've got to finish at 10:15, but I'd just like to say a few things really, and to summarize that even though we've had this complete global crisis, we've managed to show that you can come together as a community, you can come together as work colleagues, you can find new ways of working through Microsoft Teams and things like that we never even used before, and use these in a way that will allow you to come up with clever ideas to work around the situation. So in the case of the results we've got with the Microblade Fine, we had to think, well, where can we go, and how are we going to get around this, and so just coming up with clever ways of doing things is what we're all about. and working together to make the world a better place. So yeah, I'd just like to emphasize that we really came together, continued developing some great ideas with our existing platform, and then also looked at working on great ideas for the future, like the plasma, which was really applicable in the COVID situation, because COVID is not actually, it's not as strong as some of the bacteria we've proved this is effective against. So we're very confident that it can kill the COVID-19, and it just shows what can happen if you put your mind to it. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, George. I think the other thing we've learned as an organisation as well is to focus on those things that we can do rather than the things that we can't. And I think that's been a lesson for all of us this last 18 months. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Cheers, Rich. I completely agree.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.